This is Coffee Number 5. I'm your host, Lara Schmoisman. Hi guys, welcome back to Coffee Number 5. Yes, I need extra coffee this morning. It was one of those mornings. Anyway, I love beauty industry. I love my beauty products and I love marketing. And I love to understand what's going and how we evolve. And I mean, in my life, I remember when we got the first clinics color coded products that it will tell us depends of our skincare line, and that was revolutionary back then. But I feel like we evolved so much in the industry and there is so much going on, but at the same time I have to say that sometimes I'm a little disappointed because I feel like there is a lot of the same. So I wanted to bring you today an innovator in this space, but someone backed by science, and that really we can talk about how to have not only a successful skincare line, but a skincare line that makes a difference. So welcome, Mark Manning. Thank you so much for being here. And you are the founder of Mark Los Angeles, a skincare line, but also you have an incredible journey. And you were telling me a little bit before the show about how you started. So why you don't share it with us now? Because I want everyone to hear your story.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for that introduction and thanks for having me on your podcast. Really appreciate it. And before I get started, I want to say, yes, I do have my coffee.
Good.
And I want to give a shout out to Canyon Coffee. It's one of my favorite coffee roasters in LA. And so anyways, sorry.
Try that.
It's they have a cute shop in Echo Park, where all the beautiful LA people hang out. And but anyways, back to skincare and science. And I have a background in chemical engineering, practiced in the pharmaceutical industry for 20 plus years, and really focusing on drug delivery. It's in pharmaceutics, it's really about ensuring compliance through dosage, form, simplicity, and more importantly, you want the pill, in this case, most of the products I worked on were oral solid dosage. So you want that to behave. It has to give a profile of absorption consistently. Otherwise, the disease state will be, the patient will be compromised. If it has too little, you'll not suppress whatever symptoms you're treating. And if it's too much, you'll have side effects. So you have to really operate within a certain window. And so that's really where I hone my expertise and, got to work on some amazing drugs, especially for combination products for HIV. And those are really, really challenging because you're applying 3-4 different molecules, each with a different, behavior in the body. And how do you optimize for that? And they, more often than not, don't like to play together in a tablet. So that, and how I got into skincare is kind of the interesting questions because, I then went on to have my own pharmaceutical company in the Bay Area. And then I sold that. And with that, I couldn't work in the pharmaceutical industry. So I pivoted into skincare, and that's how I ended up here today. And so
it's a little different because in skincare you don't have the regulations that you have by FDA, or back then we didn't have them. Now it's changing a little bit.
It is, yeah, and definitely it's that's both a pro and a con. The pro is that you have a little more freedom to operate. The con is that the barrier to entry is more open, so anybody can really develop a skincare product. And so and then same thing, even with manufacturing facilities, it's kind of shocking how I wouldn't, it's different design philosophy or different design criteria altogether with pharmaceutical plant and versus cosmetic. Cosmetic is probably closer to food manufacturing in a way.
Yeah. So I have a question for you because we were talking before about delivery, and I think delivery, and I was talking to a few people in the industry that we agree that what the innovation in the industry could be is either ingredients or delivery.
Right. And with ingredients, it has to be paired with delivery as well. I mean, just because something is water soluble, I could almost guarantee you it does not mean it's going to translate into penetration of the skin.
Can you please explain to our audience what delivery is?
But delivery, well, I mean, in the broadest sense, you want to, where is your current site of that you want to deliver it to, or wherever the disease state is, or what have you. Like in the case of inflammation, that's generally driven by like an immune response in the dermis. It's not necessarily on the top of the skin. And so, how do you then deliver or penetrate deep into the dermis to, bring that bring the molecule into that state wherever you wish to, I guess treat it. I use that word
I,
loosely
I heard
because,
I heard people talking about patenting a delivery. Is that possible?
yeah, you can. I mean, as long as it's novel. I mean, the classic delivery system are like liposomal structures. So these are lipid-based structures, usually with like mimicking like cellular membranes, and so those can theoretically penetrate the skin. And I did write a couple patents on my delivery system because it's basically a self-assembling emulsion without an oil phase, and that's kind of the novel component of it. It's just that we use a class of compounds called flavonoids,
Hmm.
and these are what plants produce to protect themselves from pathogens and environmental stress. And so um, and to date, they've been difficult to penetrate into the skin. And so that's where, again, I use my background to both solubilize and then stabilize them in the formulation and then deliver. That's when we think about pharmaceutical development, it's the formulation, composition, it's stability as well. And then, the whole delivery mechanism as well.
So when you were talking about creating a brand, what do you think is more important to focus in the delivery or in novelty and ingredients?
I
Or
think at the end of the day, it's more efficacy. At the end, it's one thing to have a delivery system, it's one thing to have certain ingredients, but if that's your story and that's where it ends, um, then that's just kind of a marketing descriptor. At the end of the day, it has to help, in my view, it has to help patients, with whatever conditions they wish to solve for.
and so when I have so many questions that I'm trying to put my thoughts
Sure.
together because it's incredible to have the opportunity to talk to a scientist behind the story of a brand. So how did you started with your brand? What were you resolving a problem? You knew that you want to have a brand. What's the story behind Mark Los Angeles?
No, it's a great story to look back on. It's funny. We're just I think well, it's and you'll understand this like branding, and I think I've heard you talk about this before. Is branding just doesn't stop after you do that branding exercise. It's a living process, and
Yeah.
I think that's something you need to revisit, a few times a year. And so it's currently what I'm going through. And, to answer your question, what I initially set out to solve is when I sold my pharmaceutical company, I was actually losing a lot of hair and stress in that process. So I wanted to come up with a method that didn't contain like finasteride or minoxidil, but using just plant active ingredients and combed through the literature, found this class. I was familiar with flavonoids and their potent anti-inflammatory properties, but then if you see, like in the lab setting, they were shown to actually affect the signaling associated with hair loss, and so that's where I started initially, and then came up with a formula, applied it to my hair, and then I saw a regrowth in kind of the crown of my head, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so that was kind of the proof of concept. But then the reason why I didn't launch that product was because how do you like proving a clinical endpoint can take several months, 6 months at a minimum. And so that's where, I came up with the EQ line. So it's for acne. And so we had an acne clinical trial to show the endpoint of, reduced inflammation and blemish.
Clinical trials are hard and they're expensive.
They are, yeah, definitely. And so, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That statement unpacks so much with clinical trials because there's no guarantee. And so the question is, as a brand, what if you don't have a good clinical endpoint? And so I think that's where, having a hardcore R&D background and, it's just like, I'm primed for that. It's like, it's okay. You'll learn something and then how do you pivot? And then it's not a failure. Failure is an opportunity to learn. from this trial. It could be the study design itself. It could be, yeah, it doesn't work altogether. And so I don't know. It's not, the failure is not really, everybody says embrace failure, but it's easier said than done. And so you kind of have to prime for that. But you're absolutely right. I think they are difficult, they are expensive, but if you understand the underlying mechanism, that's a good way to de-risk it initially. And then, yeah.
Let me ask you a question because I see that, first of all, you have a four-step routines. Do you think how big a routine need to be in any skincare line from science perspective? Because I really still meet a lot of people say, I don't understand how to use a serum. What is a serum
Right,
for?
right. No, that's amazing. Yeah, and then, does your face need to be damp before using it or whatever?
I
This
know.
like kind of,
And
there's
also
a
a lot
lot
of
of,
people, they don't wash their face.
yeah, that's shocking. So I think, yeah, just basically a cleanser, a functional serum, and a, optional moisturizer, really. I mean, it depends on, and so, yeah, which can then get us into this sort of, I mean, what are you allowed to say with anti-aging now?
Let's
Anti-wrinkle or something.
let's break it down from the clinical scientific point of view. So what a cleanser does to your skin.
The cleanser, so ideally, the way I formulated the cleanser is to be as gentle as possible. And so you don't need to strip your skin and go like nuclear on your skin to like eradicate everything. I think that's like maybe 1980s thinking that, you need to just kind of go scorched earth. I think you can get a lot of bang for your buck with a gentle cleanser. So we're using cleansers that are safe enough to use like on babies. So I want it to be very gentle, but it has to be powerful and functional. And how do we do that? That's where the flavonoids come in. So we're able to then, even in the cleansing step, penetrate, deliver the flavonoids, and then, reduce inflammation just through cleansing alone. And so
Then
we
it
also
comes,
have an exfol.
hold on, you have another exfoliating cleanser. I
Yeah,
saw that. So why the difference between two cleansers?
I guess male naivete. I developed it for myself, and so it's like because I had like it's
I
like
love that.
I
I love
didn't
that.
I didn't know what I was doing, and it's and the reason why I developed the cleanser is because the exfoliating cleanser is just for beard, to exfoliate the whiskers that are ingrown
Yeah.
without using like a harsh abrasive. And so it's just, it's walnut shells enough to be still gentle, but not really tearing the skin. So it's a physical cleanser or physical exfoliant versus, like a carboxylic acid or, glycolic acid or what have you. Yeah.
Okay, so then what the serum does for your skincare?
So the serum was initially designed to be a spot treatment. So I do a lot of exercising, and then so I could tell when like my helmet, when I go cycling is dirty because I start breaking out, like along the jawline where the strap is and along the forehead. And so I was using a lot of salicylic acid at the time. I don't like, well, benzoyl peroxide is just too
Yeah.
atomic of a molecule. It's super oxidating substance. And so I kept breaking out though. And then so that's where I started applying, the EQ that was developed specifically as a spa treatment. But when it then went out into the world and developed its own kind of following, people started using it as a serum. And I'm like, no, no, don't use it as a serum. It's a spot treatment. And they're like, no, it's amazing as a serum because it evens the tone, it reduces redness, reduces inflammation. So it kind of took a life of its own. And so we actually had to reposition it that way because people were using that way and they just intuitively
It's
got
just
it, which
my,
was amazing.
my next question because I was about to
Yeah.
tell you that how was the process of repositioning something like that,
It
and
was
that's
it
so
was fairly easy. We just went from spot treatment to
no, but
serum.
I mean it's so
And
important. That's what is so
yeah.
important to hear people's feedback.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, it's important as a brand to take that feedback. And as much as it hurts sometimes because we don't want to hear it, you have to listen. You have to make them part of the process. And so again, that's kind of having that R&D mindset where it's like, okay, this is what I think. Like I could have spent all this energy and effort saying, no, you're using it wrong, use it as a spot treatment. But it's like when people are just getting great results, you have to take that in and reposition it. And, fortunately, we weren't really locked down in a lot of packaging, so we were able to make that change. We even scaled up the volume from, smaller to about 30 mil to, I think it was 15 milliliters initially to now like 30. And then, people with the rosacea, eczema, and psoriasis have been using it too, and it's just been evening their tone. And so again, that just speaks to what we know these molecules do in terms of modulating inflammation.
And then you went ahead and you created a health product, which is a lip product.
Yeah, that one's really exciting for me because it's again researching the literature, some really cool summary articles showing. And again, this is the beauty of like fundamental research, and this is why I advocate for fundamental research. This current administration, I think, is not really having that mindset, but you need to do like kind of pie in the sky research that understands mechanistically what's going on. And a lot of researchers have been looking at flavonoids as potent antivirals. And so there's two viruses for cold or herpes. It's HSV1, which is primarily for cold sores, and then HSV2 is for genital herpes. And so they've summarized all this mechanistic activity, but again, the delivery system is what's really missing for you could. So instead of just like hitting on one target, we're able to, like on viral replication, we're able to go after 8 different parts of replication. And so the thesis behind the lip products is really to show people, like an acne patient, it could take as long as 4 to 6 weeks to really see results. But with the lip products, you could see it almost immediately. And so that was kind of the thesis. How do we introduce people to the technology quicker? And the lip product actually is doing that. So some people now that have been in our study they used to get cold sores like every month, and now they haven't.
Once I had a cold sore and I asked a dentist that I know, and she told me a cold sore without medicine takes 7 days to go away, and a cold sore with medicine takes a week.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And and the reason why
how is this how this product is different, and how.
So it'll take on average of 2 to 3 days to clear it up. And then if you feel it at the first time of tingling, and we have this repeatedly now, and if you take it the first time of tingling, it won't even form a lesion. And cold sores that have been formed, it will not get to the oozing and cracking phase. And so that again shows, kind of the translational component of, you have research, you effectively deliver to your site of, activity, and then hopefully, these results translate to a clinical setting. I've been speaking with a pathologist who's an expert in HSV research, and she even showed in her model that, like acyclovir is a common prescribed product, and in cellular studies, it looks beautiful. It shows a reduction of the viral load, but clinically, we know it doesn't really work that well. And she demonstrated why, because, with the various skin cells, the keratinocytes and fibroblasts, acyclovir is just very difficult to penetrate. So I'm working with her to kind of, elucidate more on, what's going on with our system too. So I think it's really exciting. It shows that you could take something that's a natural product and really exploit its, benefit clinically.
So when you talk about clinicals, how you conduct the clinicals normally? You just do it by observation, or how does it work?
Well, the acne clinical study was actually overseen by, I think, 3 dermatologists. So that was actually registered with clinicaltrials.gov. It was a full-blown study. This recent cold sore study, it was easy enough for us to kind of reach out to a community and conduct it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go back. And so now we've gone back. It was like a proof of concept. Let's see what we can do to get this to the market quicker. And now we're working with dermatologists and under their guidance
And,
and,
and
just building.
how do you compare the experience of doing a blown clinical trial that will work now in community?
Yeah, the community, well, it's not for every condition too. I think cold sore, the patient population is very, has a certain level of heightened awareness and advocacy. They know what works and doesn't work. They're going to call BS like immediately. And so, we had, 50 people participating in our study, got 25 respondents, which is about right. And so of those 25 respondents, we had 95% reporting, a significant shift in their healing time. And so, then we have an interview with them and follow up, and so it's pretty extensive. So I think, and it was when we had like a call for participation, we had to shut it down within a couple of hours because we had over 500 respondents. Like,
Wow, and
uh,
where did you put that in the community? You
it
just
was,
said,
no, we just kind of pushed it out, and that's how like people are, that's how hungry people are for something that works, and they're willing to try new products. So I think it's really exciting to see. Now, we are in the domain where you are, is like it's the marketing side. And it's, we're in an era now, if you have a cure for cancer, I don't know if that messaging will get out even. And so we have this amazing product for cold sores, and now it's just really how do we fight the noise and get that messaging out.
absolutely. So, what do you see happening in the industry, beauty, wellness, or beauty and wellness combined? What do you think, as a scientist in this space, what's next?
Well, I think, going back to the whole wrinkle component and
And you
longevity,
also, yes, longevity, because we were talking about that, and you
right?
mentioned everyone is talking about longevity, but nobody knows even what it means.
Yeah, nobody knows what it means, and more importantly, what is your clinical endpoint? Because you have to follow people like statistically to see if like like it's hard enough to attribute diet to longevity or diet to like lifespan. We know like a healthy, diet and exercise, generally speaking, leads to better outcomes, but also, like skin is like, how do you tease out that noise? And so I think, but yeah, what is your clinical endpoint basically? I mean, I guess there are biomarkers that you could follow, but again, how does that translate to, skin elasticity and, youthful appearance, what have you? But I think in that realm, with respect to like anti-aging and things like that and wrinkles. And what you see is like a lot of trends for in-office procedures. So a lot of like fillers and like Botox. I think that's the way people are kind of gravitating towards like in-office procedures to kind of correct those type of problems. And then, I don't think they're relying more on like lotions and creams. So if you really want to see an effect, I think going into an aesthetic kind
Yeah,
of
to
setting
me, it's
makes
more like
sense.
a combination right now. You need to get
Right.
treatments that can done in spas or med spas, and then you need to uh, complement it or maintain with the right products.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. No, I totally agree with that. And with respect to where we're kind of leaning into with our messaging is really, what is the problem statement? It's really, like inflammation is becoming kind of the enemy of the new enemy, if you will, because it's related to premature aging. It's related to, overall skin health. And so that's kind of where we're like positioning ourselves is, these flavonoids are known. And this is again, what's interesting about the brand story. I didn't set out to kind of, with this target in mind. It's like, there's like a problem, come up with a solution. And then, when you start seeing a lot of overlap with inflammation, it starts to make sense then. That's how you develop your story. And that's where I think you need to keep going back to your brand messaging is to really reevaluate. So like, how does it come into focus? And I think the problem statement really is a commonality in a lot of skin conditions. And, how do we solve for that problem? Well, it's really the delivery system using flavonoids, which are potent anti-inflammatories to, to generate effective skincare.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much for all this information, Mark. But I have one more question for you before we go.
Yes.
How do you
Yeah.
drink your coffee?
Black. There's no other way.
Really?
Except in Italy, maybe a good latte or cappuccino there, but yeah, 100% black
But
every day.
black really strong, or black and with with a lot of water that is not strong?
Black balance, and that's why I mentioned, going back to Canon Coffee, they have a good roast. Yeah, too dark of a roast, it's overpowering, but I think to really, taste the bitterness and complexity of the beans, black is the way to go.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And to
You're
you
welcome.
guys, keep sipping your coffee, and I will see you next week with more Coffee Number 5.
Thanks so much, Laura.
Find everything you need at laraschmoisman.com or in the episode notes right below. Don't forget to subscribe. It was so good to have you here today.
See you next time. Catch you on the flip side. Ciao, ciao.